I'm Donna, and I'm 32 years old. I was sitting on my private jet watching live security footage from my brand new Malibu beach mansion while my family threw an unauthorized party in what they thought was their inheritance. The police sirens in the background were music to my ears. Let me tell you how satisfying it felt to watch my greedy relatives being handcuffed on my own property. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt betrayed by the people who should love you most. You'll definitely want to stick around for what happened next. 6 months earlier, I was just another struggling graphic designer in Portland, living paycheck to paycheck while my family constantly reminded me of my failures. My brother Marcus owned a successful construction company. My sister Jennifer ran her own marketing firm. My parents lived comfortably in their suburban dream home, playing golf 3 times a week. And there I was, the family disappointment, barely making rent on my studio apartment. But none of them knew about my secret obsession with lottery tickets. Every Friday, I'd spend $10 on Powerball tickets at the corner store. Marcus would laugh and call it a tax on people who couldn't do math. Jennifer would roll her eyes and suggest I invest that money instead. My parents would lecture me about fiscal responsibility while planning their next vacation. The night everything changed started like any other. I was eating takeout Chinese food in my tiny kitchen, scrolling through real estate listings I could never afford, when my phone buzzed with the lottery numbers. I almost didn't check them. Almost threw the ticket away like I had hundreds of times before. 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, Powerball 6. I stared at my ticket, then at my phone, then back at my ticket. My hands started shaking so violently I could barely hold the paper. Those were my numbers. All of them. I had just won $350 million. The first person I called wasn't my family. It was my best friend Charlotte, who worked the night shift at a local hospital. She didn't believe me until I sent her a photo of the winning ticket. "Donna, you need a lawyer," she said immediately. "Don't tell anyone else yet. Figure out your taxes, get your affairs in order, then decide who you want to share this with." Smart advice. Charlotte had always been the voice of reason in my life. But here's where it gets interesting. Instead of announcing my windfall, I decided to test something. I wanted to see how my family would treat me if they thought I was about to inherit money instead of having earned it myself. So I created a little story. I told them I'd received a call from a lawyer in California. My great-aunt Millicent, whom none of us had seen in decades, had passed away and left me her entire estate. Beach house in Malibu, investment portfolio, the works. Worth approximately $20 million. The transformation was immediate. Marcus, who usually answered my calls with, "What do you want now?" suddenly became my concerned big brother. Jennifer started inviting me to lunch at expensive restaurants I couldn't actually afford. My parents began treating me like their favorite child instead of their greatest disappointment. "We should all take a family trip to California," my mother suggested during one of these new fantasy meals. "To see your inheritance, help you figure out what to do with it." "Such a big responsibility," my father added. "You'll need family support." Right, because suddenly they cared about supporting me. The fictional inheritance story gave me time to actually plan my real future. I quietly met with financial advisors, lawyers, and investment managers. I set up trusts, tax shelters, and charitable foundations. I researched properties, planned my new life, and most importantly, I watched my family's true colors emerge. Marcus started hinting about loans for his business expansion. Jennifer suggested we could be partners in some new ventures. My parents began treating me with the kind of respect they'd never shown when I was just their struggling daughter. But the real test came when I mentioned wanting to visit the Malibu property alone first. "Oh, honey, you shouldn't go by yourself," my mother protested. "What if something happens?" "You don't understand real estate," Marcus added. "I should come with you, help you evaluate the property value. And you'll need someone to document everything for insurance purposes." Jennifer chimed in. I could handle all that. They couldn't bear the thought of me seeing my supposed windfall without them. That told me everything I needed to know. So I bought the beach house. Not the fictional one from my inheritance story, but a real mansion in Malibu that cost me $12 million cash. 4 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, infinity pool, private beach access, and most importantly, a state-of-the-art security system with cameras in every room. The irony wasn't lost on me. My family was falling over themselves to get access to an inheritance that didn't exist, while I was spending my actual lottery winnings on the very type of property they thought I was inheriting. I hired an interior designer to furnish it perfectly. Modern coastal style, neutral colors, expensive art on the walls. The kind of place that would photograph beautifully for the real estate magazines my family loved to read. Every detail was chosen to reinforce their belief that I had stumbled into unimaginable wealth. The security system was my favorite feature. Motion sensors, door alarms, window monitors, and hidden cameras throughout the house. I could monitor everything from my phone, receive alerts about any activity, and even communicate through built-in speakers if needed. The installation team thought I was paranoid, but I knew my family better than they did. My first test came when I casually mentioned to Marcus that I was planning to stay at the beach house for a few days. "You're going alone again?" he asked, that edge of concern in his voice that I now recognized as greed barely contained. "Just for a long weekend," I replied innocently. "I want to experience the place before making any big decisions about what to do with it." "Donna, be careful out there by yourself. Malibu can be dangerous, especially for someone not used to that kind of wealth." "Right. Because Portland was somehow safer than one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in California." Jennifer called an hour later with similar concerns. "I've been thinking about your trip. Maybe you should take someone with you, for safety." I appreciate the concern, but I really want to spend some quiet time there. Process everything that's happened. But what if there are legal issues? Property documents you need to review? I could fly out with you, help sort through everything. The desperation in her voice was almost funny. Almost. My parents were even more direct. "We've been discussing your situation," my father said during his call. $20 million is a tremendous responsibility. "Your mother and I think we should all go to California together as a family." "That's sweet, Dad, but it's not a suggestion, Donna. This inheritance affects all of us. We need to make sure you're making smart decisions." There it was. The inheritance that supposedly belonged to me somehow affected all of them. Because in their minds, my money was family money. My good fortune was their opportunity. I booked my trip to Malibu for a Thursday through Monday weekend. I made sure to mention it casually in our family group chat, along with some photos of the house I'd found online. Beautiful sunset views, pristine beaches, luxurious interiors. I painted the picture of the perfect getaway. What I didn't mention was that I'd be monitoring everything from a resort in Hawaii. I'd learned to be strategic about my deceptions. The flight to Honolulu gave me time to think about what I expected to find. Would they actually break into the house? Or would they just drive by, maybe peek through windows? I had to admit, part of me hoped they'd prove me wrong, that my family would respect my privacy and property. But I knew them better than that. I checked into my suite at the Four Seasons Maui, ordered room service, and opened the security app on my phone. All systems green. Motion detectors active, cameras recording, door and window sensors armed. For the first day, nothing happened. The house remained empty and secure while I enjoyed spa treatments and oceanfront dining. Maybe I'd misjudged their level of desperation. Maybe they'd actually respect my boundaries for once. Then Friday afternoon, my phone buzzed with an alert. Front door motion detected. Camera activation in the foyer. I opened the app and watched my brother Marcus walk into my house like he owned it. He wasn't breaking down doors or picking locks. He was using a key I had never given him. Marcus stood in my foyer, looking around with the satisfied expression of someone surveying their domain. He pulled out his phone and took photos of everything. The chandelier, the artwork, the view through the floor-to-ceiling windows. He was documenting my house like it was already his, but he wasn't alone. Jennifer walked in behind him, followed by my parents. They moved through the space like they belonged there, touching furniture, opening drawers, exploring rooms with casual entitlement. My mother ran her fingers along the marble countertops in the kitchen while my father examined the wine collection I'd carefully curated. "This must be worth at least 30 million, not 20, Jennifer said, her voice carrying clearly through the hidden microphones. "More," Marcus replied. "Look at this craftsmanship. The finishes alone probably cost more than most people's houses." They were appraising my property, calculating its value like they were planning to sell it. But where had they gotten a key? I scrolled back through the security footage looking for clues. There it was, from Tuesday morning. A locksmith van in my driveway. 2 men in uniforms using professional equipment to create duplicate keys. And there, supervising the entire operation, was my Uncle Robert. My father's brother, who worked in property management and apparently had connections in the locksmith industry. So this wasn't a spontaneous decision. This was planned. They had researched locksmiths, coordinated schedules, and deliberately violated my property while I was out of town. The level of premeditation made it so much worse. I watched them explore my house for over an hour. My father settled into the home office, looking through documents I'd deliberately left on the desk. Fake papers about the fictional inheritance, planted to support my cover story. Jennifer went straight for the master bedroom, opening closets and examining the luxury items I'd purchased. My mother claimed the kitchen, investigating appliances and storage. And Marcus. Marcus went to the garage, where he found something that stopped him cold. My other car. The Lamborghini I'd bought with my lottery winnings but hadn't mentioned to anyone. "There's a Lamborghini in here," he called to the others. They all rushed to the garage, staring at the pristine white sports car like it was a spaceship. "That's a $700,000 car," my father whispered. "Why didn't she mention it?" Jennifer asked. "Because she doesn't know what she has yet," my mother replied. "Poor thing is probably overwhelmed by all this wealth." Poor thing. Right. They spent another hour cataloging everything they found, taking photos, making lists, discussing which items were most valuable. They were inventorying my life like they were preparing for an estate sale. But the real revelation came when they gathered in the living room for what appeared to be a planning session. "We need to be more involved in her financial decisions," my father announced. "Donna has never handled this kind of money before." "She's going to make mistakes," Marcus agreed. "Wasted on things she doesn't understand." "Someone needs to help her set up proper investments," Jennifer added. "Make sure this wealth is protected." Protected. What they meant was redirected into their own accounts. "We should suggest she move closer to family," my mother said. "She'll need emotional support during this transition." What they meant was they needed easier access to my assets. But then Marcus dropped the bombshell that changed everything. "I've been thinking about our construction loan situation," he told them. "The bank is pressuring us for collateral. If Donna could co-sign or maybe let us use this house as security." There it was. The real reason for their sudden interest in my welfare. Marcus was in financial trouble and needed my supposed inheritance to save his business. "How much do you need?" my father asked. $5 million to start? But with a property like this as collateral, we could probably get 15. They were planning to mortgage my house to fund Marcus's failing business. Have you ever discovered that your own family was plotting behind your back? Share your experience in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're curious about how I handled this betrayal. I sat on my hotel balcony in Hawaii, watching my family ransack my house through my phone screen, and felt something I'd never experienced before. Pure, crystalline fury mixed with absolute certainty about what I had to do. They weren't just visiting my property, they were claiming it. Over the next several hours, I watched them make themselves completely at home. My mother cooked dinner in my kitchen using food from my refrigerator. My father opened a bottle of my expensive wine. Jennifer took a shower in my master bathroom. Marcus set up his laptop on my dining room table and started making business calls. Business calls about using my house as collateral for his loans. "Yeah, we're looking at a $30 million property in Malibu," he told someone on the phone while walking through my living room. My sister inherited it. Prime beachfront, modern construction, perfect for commercial lending. He was already negotiating loans against my property without my knowledge or consent, but the real kicker came when they started planning their extended stay. "We should stay through the weekend," Jennifer suggested. "Help Donna transition when she gets back." "Good idea," my father agreed. "She'll need family support when she realizes the scope of her responsibilities." "I'll call my office and extend my vacation," my mother added. "This is more important than my book club." They were moving in, taking over my house, my space, my life, based on a fictional inheritance they thought gave them access to everything I had. That's when I decided to accelerate my timeline. I opened my laptop and started making calls. First to my lawyer in Portland, then to my financial advisor, then to the security company that had installed my system. "I need to report a break-in at my Malibu property," I told the security dispatcher. "Are the intruders still on the premises, ma'am?" "Yes. 4 adults who entered illegally with duplicate keys. They've been there for several hours, going through my belongings and discussing plans to use my property for unauthorized financial transactions. We'll contact local police immediately." "Do you have visual confirmation of the suspects?" "I have complete video documentation of everything they've done since they entered." While I waited for the police response, I called my lawyer to discuss the legal implications of what I was watching. "They're trespassing," he confirmed after I described the situation. "The fact that they had keys made without your permission doesn't change that. If anything, the premeditation makes it worse." "What about the business calls Marcus is making, using my property as collateral without my consent? That could constitute fraud, depending on how far he takes it. Are you sure you want to pursue this legally? These are family members who had shown me their true priorities. I'm sure." The police arrived at my house at 8:47 p.m. Pacific time. I watched through my security cameras as 2 patrol cars pulled into my driveway, their lights flashing against the windows of my living room where my family was enjoying their unauthorized vacation. The officers knocked on my front door. Marcus answered it with the confidence of someone who belonged there. "Good evening, officers. Can I help you?" We received a report of a possible break-in at this address. Are you the homeowner? I'm the homeowner's brother. She's out of town and asked us to check on the house. Such a smooth lie. So confidently delivered. Do you have documentation of that request, sir? That's where Marcus faltered. Documentation? A written authorization, key exchange receipt, anything that demonstrates the homeowner's permission for you to be here? My family gathered in the foyer, confused and increasingly concerned as they realized this wasn't a routine security check. There seems to be some misunderstanding, my father interjected, using his authoritative voice. I'm Richard Patterson. This is my daughter's house. We're family. Sir, the homeowner has reported unauthorized entry and requested that all individuals be removed from the premises immediately. Jennifer's face went white. Unauthorized entry? That's ridiculous. Donna knows we're here. Ma'am, if you have permission to be here, you'll need to provide documentation. Otherwise, you're trespassing on private property. I watched my family's expressions change as they realized the situation was spiraling beyond their control. The entitlement evaporated, replaced by genuine panic. Can we call her? My mother asked. This is obviously a mistake. You're welcome to contact the homeowner, but you'll need to do so from outside the property while we investigate. That's when I decided to make my grand entrance. I activated the house's intercom system from my hotel room in Hawaii and spoke directly to the police officers standing in my foyer. Officers, this is Donna Patterson, the homeowner. I'm currently traveling and monitoring my property remotely through my security system. My family looked around frantically, trying to locate the source of my voice. The confusion on their faces was priceless. Ma'am, can you confirm that these individuals entered your property without your permission? That's correct. I never gave them keys or authorization to enter my house. They had duplicate keys made without my knowledge while I was out of town. Marcus stepped closer to one of the cameras, staring directly into it. Donna, what are you doing? We're your family. I can see you, Marcus. I've been watching everything you've done since you broke into my house. The silence that followed was beautiful. Pure, shocked silence as they realized I'd witnessed their entire violation of my privacy and property. I have video footage of everything, I continued through the intercom. The unauthorized entry, the inventory of my belongings, the business calls about using my house as collateral. All of it. Jennifer found her voice first. Donna, you're being ridiculous. We were just checking on the house. Really? Is that what you call taking showers, cooking dinner, and setting up laptops to conduct business? Checking on the house? My father stepped forward, using his stern parental voice. Young lady, this attitude is completely unacceptable. We're your family. We came here out of concern for your well-being. Did you now, Dad? Is that why Marcus spent an hour on the phone discussing commercial loans using my property as collateral? The look of betrayal that crossed my parents' faces when they turned to Marcus was almost worth the months of deception I'd endured. You did what? My mother whispered. It's not what it sounds like, Marcus stammered. I was just exploring options. For all of us. Officers, I said through the intercom. I'd like these individuals removed from my property immediately. I also want to press charges for trespassing and any other applicable violations. Ma'am, we'll need you to come to the station to file a formal report. I'll be flying back to California tomorrow. I can provide complete video documentation of everything that occurred. As the police began escorting my family out of my house, I watched their faces transform from confusion to anger to genuine fear. They were beginning to understand that their actions had consequences. But I wasn't finished. One more thing, I announced through the intercom as they reached the front door. The inheritance story was fake. There was no great Aunt Millicent. I bought this house with my own money. Complete stunned silence. I won the lottery 6 months ago. $350 million. I made up the inheritance story to see how you'd treat me if you thought I had money I hadn't earned. Jennifer's legs actually buckled. She grabbed onto Marcus's arm for support. I bought this house, the cars, everything you've been cataloging and photographing and planning to use for your own benefit. It's all mine, earned with my own luck and managed with my own decisions. My father's face had turned an alarming shade of red. Donna, if this is true. It's all true, Dad, and now I know exactly what kind of people you really are. As the police cars drove away with my family inside for questioning, I ordered another Mai Tai and watched the sunset over the Pacific Ocean. Tomorrow I'd fly back to California to deal with the legal aftermath of my family's betrayal. But tonight, I was going to enjoy the most expensive drinks I'd ever bought while watching my security cameras show me an empty, perfectly clean house that belonged entirely to me. I flew back to Los Angeles the next morning on a first-class ticket that cost more than my family used to spend on Christmas presents for everyone combined. There's something liberating about spending money when you know you'll never run out of it. My lawyer met me at LAX with a thick folder of documents and a grim expression. Your family has been released on their own recognizance, he informed me as we drove toward Malibu. But they're facing multiple charges: trespassing, breaking, and entering, conspiracy to commit fraud. What about the duplicate keys? That's the most serious part. Having keys made without the owner's consent, then using them to enter private property with intent to claim ownership rights. That's felony-level criminal activity. I stared out the window at the California landscape, feeling oddly detached from the entire situation. How long could they face in prison? Depends on their criminal history and how aggressively the district attorney wants to prosecute. Could be anywhere from probation to 5 years. 5 years. My parents could spend 5 years in prison because they couldn't resist trying to steal from their own daughter. There's something else, my lawyer continued. Your brother Marcus has been making additional unauthorized calls about using your property as collateral. He apparently gave several lenders your personal information and property details while he was in police custody before his arrest. The calls continued even after the police arrived. He was still on the phone with loan officers when they handcuffed him. The audacity was breathtaking. Even facing criminal charges, Marcus had continued trying to leverage my property for his business needs. We arrived at my house to find it exactly as I'd left it, minus the evidence of my family's invasion. The security company had reset all the cameras and changed all the locks. No one would be getting duplicate keys this time. But as I walked through my beautiful home, I felt something unexpected. Not triumph or satisfaction, but profound sadness. This house was supposed to be my dream home, my reward for years of struggle and disappointment. Instead, it had become a crime scene. The first call came within an hour of my arrival. Donna, thank God. My mother's voice was shaky, desperate. We need to talk. Do we? This has gotten completely out of hand. Your father and I never meant for any of this to happen. Which part didn't you mean to happen, Mom? The part where you had illegal keys made to my house? The part where you moved in without permission? Or the part where you spent hours planning how to spend my money? We were concerned about you. All that wealth, all those responsibilities. We wanted to help. By taking inventory of my belongings and discussing mortgage options, the silence stretched long enough that I thought she'd hung up. Marcus is in serious trouble, she finally said. His business is failing. He needs help. And you thought my house was the solution? We hoped. Family should help family, Donna. There it was. The same guilt trip strategy they'd used my entire life. Family obligations, family loyalty, family responsibility to excuse any level of manipulation or betrayal. You're right, I said calmly. Family should help family. That's why I spent 6 months pretending to inherit money I'd actually won, just to see if you'd finally treat me with respect. That's not fair. What's not fair is that it took fictional wealth to make you value me. What's not fair is that you never asked how I was handling my real struggles, but the moment you thought I had money, you all became deeply concerned about my well-being. My mother started crying. Real tears. Not the manipulative kind she'd used when I was younger. We love you, Donna. We made mistakes. But we love you. Do you? Or do you love what you thought you could get from me? She couldn't answer that question. We both knew the truth. The second call came from Jennifer an hour later. More of the same desperate justifications mixed with barely concealed anger that I'd outsmarted them. The third call was from Marcus, who somehow thought he could convince me to drop the charges if he explained his business situation in enough detail. But the most revealing call came from my Uncle Robert, the one who'd arranged the locksmith service. You always were a vindictive little brat, he said without preamble. Getting your own family arrested over a simple misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? We were looking out for your interests, making sure you didn't make foolish decisions with your inheritance. The inheritance that didn't exist? That's beside the point. You deliberately deceived your family, then set a trap to get us in trouble. I tested whether you'd respect my property and privacy. You failed spectacularly. You'll regret this. Donna, family is all you have in this world. And he hung up. But you know what? As I sat in my beautiful living room, watching the sunset paint the Pacific Ocean in brilliant colors, I realized something important. Robert was wrong. Family isn't all you have in this world. Sometimes family is what you need to protect yourself from. Tomorrow, I'd meet with prosecutors to decide how far to pursue the charges. Tonight, I was going to order takeout from the most expensive restaurant in Malibu and eat it on my private beach while deciding what to do with the rest of my fortune. Because that was the beautiful truth they'd never understand. I didn't just have money now, I had freedom. And freedom, it turns out, is worth every penny. The prosecutor's office looked exactly like every courthouse drama you've ever seen on television. Beige walls, fluorescent lighting, and the overwhelming scent of instant coffee and desperation. Assistant District Attorney Sarah Chen reviewed my case file while I sat across from her mahogany desk, trying not to think about how my family was probably having their own meetings with defense attorneys at that very moment. "Mrs. Patterson, I have to say, this is one of the more unusual cases we've seen this year," she said, flipping through photographs of my security footage. "Your documentation is extraordinary. Most break-in cases rely on circumstantial evidence, but you have video of the entire incident. I believe in being thorough. The duplicate key situation is particularly damaging for the defendants. This wasn't a crime of opportunity. Someone researched locksmith services, coordinated schedules, and executed a plan to gain unauthorized access to your property." I nodded, remembering Uncle Robert's smug voice when he called me vindictive. "However," Sarah continued, and I sensed a but coming, "prosecuting family members creates unique complications. Juries are often sympathetic to defendants who claim they were acting out of love or concern. Even when they're caught on camera discussing mortgage fraud, that's our strongest evidence. Your brother's phone calls about using your property as collateral demonstrate clear criminal intent beyond simple trespassing." She leaned back in her chair, studying my expression. "What outcome are you hoping for here, Mrs. Patterson?" Interesting question. What did I want? Public vindication? Financial compensation? My family behind bars? "I want them to understand that actions have consequences," I said finally. "For 32 years, they've treated me like their personal disappointment. The moment they thought I had money, they decided I was incapable of managing it myself. They violated my privacy, my property, and my trust. I want that behavior to stop. Prison sentences would certainly send that message. Maybe. Or maybe it would just make me the villain in their story, the ungrateful daughter who destroyed the family over money." Sarah nodded knowingly. "We see this dynamic often in white-collar cases involving families. The victims sometimes feel guilty about pursuing justice." "I don't feel guilty," I clarified. "I feel tired. Tired of being underestimated, manipulated, and taken for granted." "Then let me make a suggestion. We have enough evidence to pursue felony charges against all 4 defendants. But given the family relationship, we might consider a plea agreement. Community service, restitution, probation. Still creates a criminal record but avoids prison time." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text message from Marcus. "Please call me. We need to talk before this goes any further." I showed the message to Sarah. They're still trying to manage the situation. Not surprising. Defense attorneys probably told them to attempt reconciliation. Makes them look more sympathetic if this goes to trial. What do you think will happen next? Will Donna accept a plea deal or push for maximum punishment? Share your predictions in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for the conclusion of this story. I left the prosecutor's office with more questions than answers. Part of me wanted to see my family face serious consequences for their betrayal, but another part wondered if destroying them completely would ultimately destroy me too. The drive back to Malibu gave me time to think. I'd spent months planning my test of their character, and they'd failed spectacularly. But now what? How do you rebuild relationships that were built on false foundations? How do you forgive people who only valued you for what they thought they could take? My house felt different when I returned. Still beautiful, still luxurious, but somehow hollow. All this space, all this wealth, and no one to share it with who actually cared about me rather than my bank account. That evening, I finally returned Marcus's call. "Donna, thank God. I've been trying to reach you all day. I was meeting with the prosecutor. They have quite a strong case against you." Silence. Then, "How strong?" "Strong enough for felony convictions." "How's your business doing, Marcus? Still need that $5 million loan?" "You recorded everything." "I did. Including your phone calls about commercial lending while you were trespassing in my house. I never meant for it to go this far. I was just exploring options. Options to steal from your sister. Not steal. Borrow. Use as collateral. You would have been protected." "Protected? You were planning to mortgage my house without my consent. How exactly does that protect me?" Another long silence. "What do you want, Donna? What will it take to make this go away?" There it was. The same transactional thinking that had gotten him into this situation. Everything was negotiable. Everything had a price, including his sister's forgiveness. "I want you to understand something, Marcus. This isn't about money. This never was about money. This is about respect. I respect you." "No, you don't. You respect what you thought you could get from me. There's a difference. The family meeting was Jennifer's idea, though I suspect their lawyer suggested it. Neutral ground, she said when she called. Just family, no lawyers, no prosecutors. We need to talk this through. I agreed to meet them at a coffee shop in Santa Monica. Public enough to prevent anyone from making a scene, but private enough for honest conversation. Though I wondered if my family was even capable of honesty at this point. They were already seated when I arrived, huddled around a corner table like conspirators. My parents looked older than I remembered. My father's face drawn with stress. My mother's usually perfect hair slightly disheveled. Marcus fidgeted with his coffee cup, avoiding eye contact. Jennifer sat straighter, clearly designated as their spokesperson. Thank you for coming, Jennifer began as I took the remaining chair. We know you're angry. I'm not angry, I interrupted. Anger would imply I expected better from you. The words hung in the air like smoke. My mother flinched visibly. We made mistakes, Jennifer continued. We see that now. But this legal situation is destroying our family. No, Jennifer. Your choices destroyed our family. The legal situation is just the consequence. Marcus finally looked up. Donna, I know what I did was wrong. The business calls, the collateral discussion. I was desperate. The company is failing, and I hoped. You thought I was your bailout plan. Family helps family, my father interjected, using his authoritative voice. That's what we were raised to believe. Really? Dad? When did family ever help me? When I was struggling to pay rent? When I was eating ramen noodles for dinner because I couldn't afford groceries? When I was working 2 jobs just to survive? You never asked for help, my mother protested. I shouldn't have had to ask. You knew I was struggling, but none of you cared until you thought I had money to share. That's not fair, Jennifer said. We were proud of your independence. I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Proud of my independence? Or relieved that my failures made you look more successful? The truth settled over the table like a blanket. They couldn't deny it because we all knew it was accurate. The inheritance story proved everything, I continued. The moment you thought I had unearned wealth, you all became deeply concerned about my welfare. Where was that concern during the 10 years I was actually struggling? We're concerned now, my mother whispered. You're concerned about criminal charges. There's a difference. Marcus leaned forward desperately. What do you want from us, Donna? How do we fix this? You can't fix this, Marcus. You can't undo the fact that you broke into my house. You can't undo the phone calls about using my property as collateral. You can't undo the years of treating me like the family disappointment. So that's it? Jennifer's voice was rising. You're going to destroy us all because we made some bad decisions? I'm not destroying anything. I'm allowing you to face the natural consequences of your choices. My father slammed his coffee cup down. This is ridiculous. You're our daughter. You're supposed to protect family, not prosecute them. I'm supposed to protect family? The irony was almost funny. Dad, you spent 32 years telling me I wasn't good enough. Now you want family protection? You're being vindictive. I'm being honest. For the first time in our relationship, I'm being completely honest about who you are and how you've treated me. I stood up, gathering my purse. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to let the prosecutor handle this case according to the law. If you want to plea bargain, work with your lawyers. If you want to go to trial, prepare your defense. But don't expect me to save you from the consequences of your own actions. Donna, please, my mother called as I walked away. Don't destroy your family over money. I turned back one last time. I'm not destroying our family over money, Mom. You already destroyed it over money. I'm just refusing to pretend otherwise anymore. 2 weeks later, I received a call that changed everything. Not from my family or their lawyers, but from someone I'd never expected to hear from again. Donna, this is Charlotte Hayes. We worked together at the design firm in Portland about 5 years ago. I remembered Charlotte. Talented, hardworking, and one of the few people at that job who'd treated me like an equal instead of competition. Charlotte, hi. How did you get my number? I saw your name in a Business Journal article about lottery winners who made smart investments. I can't believe you won the Powerball. I'm so happy for you. Business Journal article? I hadn't given any interviews. What article? It was about responsible wealth management. You were featured as someone who used their winnings to build sustainable investments instead of just spending frivolously. There was a photo of you at some charity event. I hadn't been to any charity events. Charity. Someone was using my story without permission. Charlotte, I think there might be some confusion. I haven't spoken to any business journals. Really? That's weird. The article had specific details about your investment strategies and philanthropic goals. It even mentioned your Malibu beach house. My blood ran cold. What exactly did it say about the beach house? That you were planning to use it as a retreat center for struggling artists, providing free residencies for people who couldn't afford time and space to develop their work. Someone had not only stolen my story, but created an entire fictional narrative about my plans. And there was only one group of people who knew enough details to construct such a convincing lie. Charlotte, can you send me a link to that article? Of course. But Donna, if you're really doing the artist retreat thing, I'd love to talk to you about it. I've been struggling since the design firm closed. I'm basically freelancing and barely making rent. After we hung up, I stared at my phone, waiting for Charlotte's text. When it came, I clicked the link and felt my world tilt sideways. The article was published in a legitimate business magazine. It featured a professional headshot I'd never taken and quotes I'd never given. According to the piece, I was launching the Patterson Foundation for Creative Arts, using my lottery winnings to support emerging artists through grants and residencies. The beach house was described as the foundation's flagship program, a place where selected artists could live and work for free while developing their craft. Applications were being accepted through a website that looked completely legitimate. Someone had built an entire fraudulent organization using my name, my story, and my property. I scrolled through the fake website, reading testimonials from supposed grant recipients and viewing photos of my house presented as a creative retreat center. There was even a donation button for people who wanted to support the foundation's mission. My hands were shaking as I called my lawyer. This is identity theft on a massive scale, he confirmed after I sent him the links. Someone has created a fraudulent charity using your personal information and property. Who could do something like this? Who has enough information about me to make it look legitimate? Someone with intimate knowledge of your financial situation and properties. Someone who knew about your lottery winnings and your Malibu house before the information became public through the criminal case. My family. It had to be my family. But why would they do this? They're already facing criminal charges. Maybe they're trying to create justification for their behavior. If they can demonstrate that you were planning to use the house for public purposes anyway, it might support their claim that they were just looking out for your interests. Or maybe they're trying to discredit me before trial. That's possible too. If they can make you look like someone who lies to the media about charitable work, it might undermine your credibility as a witness. I spent the rest of the day documenting everything. Screenshots of the fake website, copies of the fraudulent article, records of when the content was published. The timeline was damning. The Business Journal article had been published just 3 days after my family's arrest. Someone had moved very quickly to construct this elaborate deception. But as I researched deeper, I discovered something even more troubling. The fake foundation website included a contact form where artists could submit applications for grants and residencies. Over 200 people had applied in just 2 weeks. 200 struggling artists who believed they might receive help that would never come. People like Charlotte, barely making ends meet, pinning their hopes on assistance from a foundation that existed only to cover up my family's crimes. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I called an emergency meeting with my lawyer, my financial advisor, and a public relations specialist. Not to manage damage control, but to discuss something that had never occurred to me before. What if we made it real? I asked them as we sat around the conference table in my lawyer's office. Made what real? Sarah, my PR consultant, looked confused. The foundation. What if I actually started the Patterson Foundation for Creative Arts? What if I turned my family's lie into something genuine? My financial advisor, David, leaned forward. You're talking about a major philanthropic commitment. Charitable foundations require ongoing funding, administrative oversight, legal compliance. I have ongoing funding. $350 million generates substantial investment income. But why? My lawyer asked. You could simply demand that the fake website be taken down and prosecute whoever created it. Because 200 artists have applied for help. 200 people who are struggling the way I used to struggle. People like Charlotte, who see this as their only chance to focus on their art instead of just surviving. I pulled out the printed applications I'd been reading all morning. Listen to this. I'm a single mother working 3 jobs to support my daughter while trying to complete my photography portfolio. A residency would give me the time and space to finally finish the work that could change our lives. Or this one. I've been sleeping in my car for 2 months, but I've written a novel that I believe could make a difference. I just need somewhere safe to edit and submit it to publishers. Sarah was nodding slowly. It would be an incredible PR move. Turn your family's deception into something positive. This isn't about PR, I said firmly. This is about the fact that my family accidentally created something beautiful while trying to destroy me. David was already pulling up financial projections on his laptop. A foundation like this would require significant initial funding, probably 10 to 15 million to start, then ongoing annual commitments. I can afford that. The beach house would need modifications to accommodate residents. Separate studio spaces, additional bedrooms, commercial kitchen facilities. I'll renovate it. My lawyer was taking notes rapidly. We'd need to file for nonprofit status, establish a board of directors, create application and selection processes. Then let's do it. But the most important question came from Sarah. What about your family? Creating a real foundation validates their story about your charitable intentions. It might help their legal defense. I thought about that for a long moment. Let me ask you something. What's more important, punishing my family or helping 200 artists who did nothing wrong? Both, David said bluntly. Why can't you do both? Because spite isn't a sustainable foundation for philanthropy. If I create this organization just to prove my family wrong, it won't serve the people who need it. I looked around the table at these three professionals who were being paid to protect my interests. My family broke into my house because they thought I couldn't handle wealth responsibly. What if I proved them wrong by using that wealth to help people instead of just accumulating more of it? Sarah smiled for the first time since we'd started talking. That would be the ultimate revenge, wouldn't it? Not just proving you can handle money, but proving you can handle it better than they ever imagined. Over the next week, I threw myself into foundation planning with the same intensity I'd once devoted to my lottery ticket fantasies. I researched successful artist residency programs, consulted with arts administrators, and interviewed architects about renovating the beach house. The irony wasn't lost on me. My family's attempt to use my property for their own benefit was inspiring me to actually use it for other people's benefit. But the real revelation came when I was reviewing grant applications and came across one that made me stop breathing. The applicant was Marcus. My own brother had applied to the fake foundation he'd probably helped create. His application described his failing construction business and his dream of transitioning into architectural design. He wanted a residency to develop a portfolio that would help him change careers. He had no idea his sister was reading his most vulnerable professional confession. In his application, Marcus wrote about feeling trapped in a business that was destroying his family relationships and his mental health. He described his secret passion for sustainable design and his dream of creating affordable housing for artists and writers. It was the most honest thing I'd ever read from him, and it changed everything about how I viewed this situation. I spent 3 days staring at Marcus's application, trying to understand how my brother could simultaneously break into my house and apply for help from what he thought was my charitable foundation. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. Then I realized something that made me feel physically sick. Marcus hadn't applied to a foundation he'd helped create. He'd applied because he genuinely believed I was running a charitable organization and was too proud to ask his sister directly for help, which meant someone else had created the fake website and stolen my identity. I called my lawyer immediately. We need to trace the website registration and payment records for that fake foundation site. Why? I thought you were moving forward with creating a real foundation. Because my brother applied for a grant. Marcus submitted an application to what he thought was my charity. If he'd helped create the fake website, he would never have applied to it himself. That's actually solid logic. Give me a few hours to run the digital forensics. While I waited, I reread Marcus's application with new eyes. His writing was desperate but honest. He described feeling like he'd built his adult life around expectations that weren't his own, choosing construction because our father respected it, expanding the business because success was measured in growth, making decisions based on what looked good rather than what felt right. It sounded familiar. I'd spent years making choices based on what my family expected rather than what I wanted. When my lawyer called back, his voice was grim. The website was registered by your Uncle Robert, paid for with a credit card linked to his property management business. Uncle Robert, the one who'd arranged the locksmith service, who'd called me vindictive for prosecuting my own family. He's been taking donations through the fake foundation site. Small amounts, mostly $20 to $50 from people who wanted to support arts education. But it adds up. He's collected almost $8,000 so far. He's stealing from people who want to help struggling artists. Gets worse. I found the source of that Business Journal article. Robert has a contact at the magazine from his property management work. He provided the fake information and photos, claiming to represent your media relations. So while my parents, Marcus and Jennifer, had been sitting in coffee shops begging for my forgiveness, Uncle Robert had been actively committing fraud using my identity. The man who'd lectured me about family loyalty was stealing from strangers and lying to journalists. There's one more thing, my lawyer continued. Robert has been in contact with several potential investors about the foundation. He's been trying to set up meetings to discuss major donations to support the program. He's running a full-scale con using my name and property. Exactly. And if we don't stop him soon, he's going to defraud some very wealthy people who think they're supporting legitimate charitable work. I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just about my family anymore. Robert was using my identity to steal from innocent people who wanted to help artists. People like the donors who'd contributed small amounts to support what they thought was my foundation. People like the artists who'd submitted applications believing they might receive real assistance. I want to set a trap, I told my lawyer. What kind of trap? Robert is trying to set up meetings with potential major donors, right? What if one of those potential donors was me? 2 days later, I was sitting in an upscale Beverly Hills restaurant, wearing a wig and designer clothes that made me look like someone else entirely. My name for the evening was Patricia Williams, and according to the backstory my PR team had created, I was a tech entrepreneur interested in supporting arts education. Robert arrived precisely on time, carrying a leather portfolio and wearing his most expensive suit. He'd clearly invested in making this meeting look legitimate. "Ms. Williams, thank you so much for your interest in the Patterson Foundation," he said, settling into his chair with practiced charm. "Donna Patterson is doing incredible work supporting emerging artists." "Yes, I've read about her program. The beach house residency sounds wonderful." "Oh, it is." Donna has personally designed every aspect of the experience to nurture creativity while providing practical support for artists who might otherwise never have these opportunities. I listened to Robert spin elaborate lies about my supposed involvement with the foundation, my hands to my vision, my commitment to supporting the arts. According to him, I was personally mentoring every grant recipient and had already changed dozens of lives through my generosity. "I'd love to make a significant contribution," I said, playing my role perfectly. "Perhaps $500,000 to start?" Robert's eyes lit up with greed. "That would be transformational for the program." "Of course. I'd need to meet Donna personally before making such a large donation. Due diligence, you understand." For the first time, Robert looked uncomfortable. "Donna is very private. She prefers to let the work speak for itself." "I'm sure she does. But I don't write six-figure checks without meeting the people I'm supporting." "I could arrange a phone call?" "No. I need to see the facility in person. Meet with current residents, tour the studios, discuss the program directly with Donna." Robert was sweating now. "That might be difficult to arrange. Donna is currently dealing with some family issues." "Family issues?" "Nothing serious. Just some relatives who are jealous of her success and trying to cause problems." The irony was exquisite. Robert was describing my family's criminal charges as jealousy while simultaneously committing fraud using my identity. "Well," I said, standing up and gathering my purse, "when Donna is ready to meet with serious donors, have her people call my people." As I walked away, I activated the recording app on my phone and called my lawyer. "Did you get everything we needed?" "Every word. Robert just committed wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit charity fraud in front of multiple witnesses." Now I had all the evidence I needed to destroy the person who was actually responsible for the fake foundation. But more importantly, I had the proof I needed to save the family members who were just guilty of being desperate and stupid instead of genuinely criminal. The final confrontation took place in the prosecutor's office with everyone present. My parents, Marcus, Jennifer, their defense attorneys, Uncle Robert and his lawyer, my legal team, and Assistant District Attorney Sarah Chen presiding over what felt like the world's most dysfunctional family reunion. "Based on new evidence provided by Mrs. Patterson," Sarah began, "we're prepared to offer revised plea agreements to some defendants while pursuing felony charges against others." Uncle Robert's lawyer looked nervous. "What new evidence?" I pulled out my phone and played the recording of Robert's fraudulent pitch to Patricia Williams. His voice filled the room as he described my supposed personal involvement with a foundation that didn't exist, solicited donations for fake charitable work, and slandered my parents as jealous relatives causing problems. The silence that followed was beautiful. "Mr. Robert Patterson," Sarah continued, "you're now facing federal charges for wire fraud, identity theft, and operating a fraudulent charity. The penalties include up to 20 years in federal prison and complete financial restitution to all victims." Robert's face went white. "This is entrapment. You can't use that recording." "Actually, we can. Your niece was investigating identity theft committed against her. She was well within her rights to document your criminal activity." I looked at my parents and siblings, watching the realization dawn on their faces. They weren't the masterminds behind the fake foundation. They'd been manipulated by Robert just like everyone else. "For the remaining defendants," Sarah said, "we're prepared to offer community service and probation in exchange for testimony against Robert Patterson and full restitution for damages to the victim's property." My father found his voice first. "You mean we won't go to prison?" Not if you accept the plea agreement and testify truthfully about Robert's involvement in planning the break-in and subsequent fraud scheme. Marcus was staring at me with something I'd never seen in his expression before. Genuine remorse mixed with gratitude. "Donna," he said quietly, "why are you helping us?" "Because Robert was the one running the con. You were just desperate enough to fall for his manipulation. But we still broke into your house." "Yes, you did. And you're going to do community service to make up for it. You're going to testify against Uncle Robert so he can't hurt anyone else. And you're going to pay for the security system upgrades and locksmith fees." Jennifer was crying openly. "We don't deserve this mercy." "You're right, you don't. But mercy isn't about what people deserve. It's about choosing who you want to be." After the legal proceedings concluded and everyone else had left, I sat alone with Sarah Chen in her office. "You know you could have destroyed them all," she observed. "You had enough evidence to send your entire family to prison." "I could have. But then what? I'd be rich and alone and bitter. That's not the person I want to be." "What about the real foundation? Are you still planning to move forward with that?" I smiled, thinking about the 200 applications sitting on my desk, including Marcus's honest confession about his career dreams. "Absolutely. In fact, I think I know who my first resident artist is going to be." 6 months later, I stood on the deck of my renovated beach house, watching Marcus put the finishing touches on the studio spaces he'd designed and built for the Patterson Foundation for Creative Arts. His construction skills had proven invaluable in creating workspaces that were both beautiful and functional. My parents had completed their community service by helping organize foundation events and manage administrative tasks. Jennifer used her marketing expertise to promote our programs and attract quality applicants. Even their punishment had become a form of contribution. Uncle Robert was serving 18 months in federal prison and would be paying restitution for years. But more importantly, the fake foundation scandal had generated national media attention that brought legitimate donors to our real program. Charlotte arrived for her photography residency on a Tuesday morning, carrying a suitcase and a camera bag and the kind of hopeful expression I remembered from my own struggles. "I can't believe this is real," she said, looking around the studio space that would be hers for the next 6 months. "Neither can I sometimes." That evening, I sat in my living room with a glass of wine, reading applications from artists all over the country who needed what I'd never had when I was struggling: time, space, financial support, and someone who believed in their work. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Thank you for seeing something in me that I couldn't see in myself," followed by one from Jennifer. "The foundation website is getting amazing traffic. Artists are calling it life-changing." And one from my mother. "Your father and I are proud of what you've built." We should have said that years ago. I set the phone aside and walked out to my private beach. The Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly toward the horizon, reflecting stars I'd never noticed during my years of struggle and disappointment. The lottery had given me financial freedom, but creating the foundation had given me something more valuable: purpose. The ability to use my resources to change lives instead of just accumulating possessions. My family would never be the same people who'd raised me to doubt myself, but they'd become people who understood the difference between loving someone and trying to control them. People who'd learned that respect can't be inherited or stolen, only earned through honest action. As I stood there listening to the waves crash against the shore of my very expensive beach, I realized something profound. The best revenge against people who underestimate you isn't proving them wrong about your weaknesses. It's proving them wrong about their own limitations. If this story resonated with you, make sure to like and subscribe for more stories about overcoming family betrayal and finding your own path to success. Sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones who teach us who we really want to become. And if you're struggling with your own dreams, remember this: every successful artist, writer, or entrepreneur started exactly where you are now, with talent, determination, and someone who believed in their potential. Sometimes that someone has to be yourself, but if you're lucky, sometimes it's a stranger who understands what it means to transform pain into purpose. Thank you for listening to my story. Now go write your own.